The night can hold secrets, but some are not meant to be found. What happens after midnight, when the world is supposed to be asleep, can unravel the fabric of reality. These events are not from a movie script. They are drawn from the real-life experiences of ordinary people who found themselves in situations that defy explanation. Our first story comes from a long-haul truck driver named Mark, who spent his nights crisscrossing the country on desolate highways. For him, the road was a second home, a familiar ribbon of asphalt under the moonlit sky. One particular night, while driving through the vast, empty plains of Nebraska, the monotony was broken by a strange sight. Far ahead, a single set of headlights appeared, but they weren't moving. They were stationary, pointing directly at him in the middle of his lane. Mark slowed his rig, flashing his high beams, expecting the other driver to move. They didn't. The lights remained fixed, an unblinking stare in the darkness. As he got closer, a feeling of unease settled in his stomach. This wasn't a breakdown. There were no hazard lights, no person waving for help. It was just a car, sitting silently in the path of his massive truck. He was forced to bring his 18-wheeler to a complete stop, the air brakes hissing in the profound silence of the plains. He peered into the car. It was an older model sedan, rusted and beaten, but there was no one inside. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seats were empty. He honked his horn, the sound echoing across the empty landscape, but there was no response. Confused and increasingly wary, Mark decided he couldn't just sit there. He slowly began to maneuver his truck around the abandoned vehicle. As his cab passed the sedan's driver's side window, he glanced over one last time. His heart froze. Face was looking back at him from the driver's seat. It was pale, with wide, dark eyes that seemed to drink in the light. It wasn't there a second ago. He was sure of it. Face didn't move, didn't blink. It just stared. Mark slammed his foot on the accelerator, the engine roaring to life as he pulled his rig away. He didn't look back in his mirror until he was miles down the road. The sedan and its strange occupant were gone, as if they had never been there at all. For the rest of his career, Mark never drove that stretch of Nebraska highway after midnight again. He couldn't shake the image of that pale, vacant face, appearing from nowhere in the dead of night. The next account takes us to a quiet suburban neighborhood, to a family who had just moved into what they believed was their dream home. For the first few weeks, everything was perfect. The Andersons, a couple with their 7-year-old daughter Lily, were happy. But then the nights began to change. It started with small things. Lily began talking about a new friend, a boy she called the Shadow Boy. Her parents assumed it was an imaginary friend, a common comfort for a child in a new house. They would overhear her having one-sided conversations in her room, laughing and whispering to someone who wasn't there. One night, Mrs. Anderson was woken just after midnight by a faint sound. It was the gentle creak of the floorboards in the hallway. Thinking Lily was up for a glass of water, she got out of bed and opened her door. The hallway was empty, bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight. But as she stood there listening, she heard it again, a soft shuffling sound coming from Lily's room. She quietly approached her daughter's door, which was slightly ajar. Peeking inside, she saw Lily sitting up in her bed, her back to the door. She was whispering, "No, you can't, they'll hear you." A cold dread washed over Mrs. Anderson. She pushed the door open wider. Lily turned, her eyes wide with fear. "He wants to come out and play," she whispered, pointing not at an empty corner, but at the wall beside her closet. The activity escalated. Its objects would move on their own toy, rolling across the floor, a cupboard door swinging open. The Andersons started hearing faint whispers when no one was speaking, and the temperature in certain rooms would drop suddenly. The focus always seemed to be Lily's room. One evening, Mr. Anderson set up a baby monitor with a video camera, hoping to debunk the Shadow Boy and ease his own growing fears. He and his wife sat in the living room, watching the grainy, black and white feed. For hours, nothing happened. Lily slept peacefully. Then, just after 3 a.m., a dark shape began to form in the corner of the room on the monitor. It was tall and slender, darker than the surrounding shadows. It had no discernible features, just a vaguely human form. It stood perfectly still for several minutes. Then, it began to move, glided across the room, not walking, but flowing like smoke, until it stood directly over Lily's bed. It had bent down, its formless head hovering just inches from her face. The Andersons stared at the screen in pure terror, unable to move or scream. The figure remained there for what felt like an eternity before slowly straightening up and receding back into the corner, vanishing completely. They raced to Lily's room, flinging the door open. She was sound asleep, unharmed. The room was cold, unnaturally so. They moved out of the house the very next day, leaving most of their belongings behind. They never found out who or what the figure was, or why it was so interested in their daughter. Our final story comes from a group of college students who decided to go camping in a national forest known for its dense woods and historical disappearances. There were 4 of them, 2 couples, looking for a weekend escape. They found a secluded spot deep within the forest, far from any designated campsites. The first day was idyllic. They set up their tents, built a fire, and enjoyed the tranquility of the wilderness. As night fell, the forest came alive with the sounds of crickets and the rustling of unseen animals. It was peaceful, but after midnight, the atmosphere shifted. The normal sounds of the forest ceased, replaced by an unnerving silence. It was a heavy, oppressive quiet that made the air feel thick. Then they heard it. A single, clear whistle. It was a simple, 3-note tune, and it came from the darkness just beyond the glow of their campfire. They called out, thinking it might be another camper, but there was no response. A few minutes later, the whistle came again, this time from a different direction, closer. A chill ran down their spines. It felt like they were being circled. They tried to rationalize. It must be a bird or the wind. But the tune was too deliberate, too human. As the night wore on, the whistling continued, moving around their campsite like a predator stalking its prey. Panic began to set in. They huddled closer to the fire, their eyes scanning the impenetrable wall of trees that surrounded them. Around 2 a.m., the whistling was joined by another sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. It sounded like someone was knocking on a tree, first to their left, then to their right, then directly behind them. The sounds were coordinated, as if more than one person was out there, communicating in the dark. The climax of their terror arrived when one of them shone a powerful flashlight into the trees in the direction of the latest whistle. For a brief second, the beam caught 2 points of light reflecting back at them. They were too high off the ground to be an animal, and too far apart. They looked like eyes. As soon as the light hit them, they vanished, and the whistling and tapping stopped instantly. The rest of the night was spent in absolute silence, but it was a silence filled with dread. They didn't sleep. They just sat, waiting for the sun to rise. As soon as the first light of dawn broke through the canopy, they packed up their camp in a frenzy and practically ran back to their car. They never went camping in that forest again. To this day, they have no idea what was out there in the woods with them, whistling in the dark. What truly terrifies us is not always what we see, but what we don't. It's the unanswered question, the sound without a source, the presence that leaves no trace. For these individuals, the line between the known and the unknown was crossed after midnight, leaving them with memories that would haunt their sleep forever. The most unsettling part is the simple fact that we may never know what was truly out there, watching from the shadows.